Hi, every- Hi everyone, my name is Angie and this is me, my natural habitat. Welcome back to another video. Today is the final edition in the natural habitat series. I've been doing this series for the past 5 years. The goal when I first started was I was gonna take this, like the process of making videos, forcing myself to make like one video every month for 10 out of the 12 months, and then I'll take a 2 month break. So my goal was that I was gonna learn what I could, out of filming, out of editing, out of like my setup. So many things has changed since then. I started off just using the internal mic of my camera, which was a GoPro, and then subsequently moved to an Osmo Action, and because the GoPro was frustrating me so much, there are times where I legitimately wanted to like throw it at the wall because it was so frustrating to use because it overheats. And to compensate that, because I didn't have like any other action cameras I could use, I had to like rest an ice pack on top of the GoPro, which resulted in me breaking one of my projects. The U-Gear, the flower ones, the one that has a jewelry holder. So yeah, a lot of things happened throughout these 5 years. COVID being one of them, and my voice is not that great right now because I actually had just recovered from COVID. Like this is the second time contracting it. I think just last week. So yeah, I'm at a. Sounds really husky now. I can practice my lower registers in this voice. But yeah, it started with just like two GoPros, like two action cams, and just using the internal microphone and doing what I could, not knowing how to audio balance whatever I recorded, which has become a relative norm for the later videos. So if I have to play back the old videos, out shopping with my friend, and then I came across a section called Kid Out. It's really cringe. Yeah. Compared to my voice now, and that was as is. That was what was posted on YouTube. You can find that exact video on YouTube and it will sound the same. So much have changed along the way. I guess one of the major changes that I made was, after building my new computer. I guess one of my biggest limitation back then was also because I don't have the equipment to, in a sense, make changes the way I want to in terms of filming it, because there's only so much you can fix in post. Like I came from a production, like video production background. I learned VFX, and the most common joke that we always do is, oh, it's okay, just fix it in post. But there's only so much you can do if your actual raw footage is not that great, you know. So ever since building my own computer, I purposefully decided I was gonna build one that allowed me to add a capture card, which is what I did for my current PC. And so because of that, I was able to change my frontal camera into like a proper SLR or like a compact cam. So I decided to go with this Sony ZV-1, which gives me a much bigger depth of field, makes me pop out a lot more on screen. So I think that just brought up the quality of the video by quite a bit. And the other major change was the mic. Just having the mic at the start wasn't enough because it was mounted directly on the mic arm, and the kind of projects I do, I'm on the table a lot, so every like bang on the table, like I could hear it in the mic. So afterwards, I added a shock mount. So this has actually helped with that sound, like reducing that desk knocking sound by quite a bit. And then afterwards, I learned a little bit more about audio editing. I mean, when we talk, we fluctuate. Like the volume is not always constant. When we get excited, it gets louder, and then most of us, since I work in the events, I work with a lot of like speakers. Most of us tend to trail off somewhere down the sentence, so we tend to get softer. And the way to make it sound nicer is you add a compressor so that you kind of sound more level. And even if you were to start talking softer and softer and softer, it doesn't come off that obvious in the recording. So that is what I eventually started doing as well for all of my later videos. Yeah, so I guess this journey has been fruitful in the sense that I started out using like my love for modding things as like an excuse, so that I start to document. I kind of force myself to document all the projects I did, and I learn from it, like the different ways of editing, the different ways of setting up my stuff, and yeah, I it's been a journey. And of course, I want to talk about my favorite projects out of the 5 years. I cannot go about without starting off with the very first one, which is the transparent Joy-Con shell. This will always have a special place in my heart because this was what got the whole project started. I still play my Switch like very frequently. In fact, I have actually started moving into like live streaming my games. And this particular set of Joy-Con will always have a special place in my heart because when I first discovered I could do this, I thought it was so cool that I get to see the inner workings of a Switch controller. And like, because everything is transparent, right? You could really just see everything. Focus. And I just found it so cool. But this particular set, it's not really functional anymore. Being the first set of Joy-Con that I swapped out, there's probably some things that I either did not do properly or accidentally damaged. So the joysticks doesn't work very, very well, which honestly is a very simple fix. In fact, I've actually got a bunch of like replacement joysticks because I found like Joy-Con drift was a really big issue with Switch. I believe it's still an issue. I haven't bought any like new Joy-Cons in a while, so I don't really know. But there's this company that came out with like a different technology for the Joy-Cons joysticks, so it doesn't drift as much or at all. So I actually bought a bunch to replace, and I did in the main one that I always use, but I have not swapped out any of my others. But I don't plan on using this. This is just like a museum piece now. Yeah, so I'm just gonna keep it. It's currently stored in a box in a drawer. So this is my museum piece as a mark of I've done this. So this is the most memorable project because this is what kickstarted the whole thing, and it actually kickstarted my mass Nintendo video as well. I currently have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 Joy-Cons, so 5 pairs of Joy-Cons, all modded. I have 2 which are not modded. They are the original Eevee and Pikachu Joy-Con as well as the Animal Crossing Joy-Cons. So every single one, so essentially in total I have 14 Joy-Cons. Wow, that's a lot. Yeah, I have 7 pairs. So the modded ones are all currently in a storage on my shelf with all my Nintendo stuff. So my Pokemon Let's Go Pokeball is also inside there. Yeah, so those are kind of like just the display pieces. I've never really used them. They all have their own like plastic casing, plastic transparent casing, so I can still see the colors because that was the whole reason I modded them, right? To have like fancy colors on my Joy-Cons. But yeah, so they have just been sitting in that shelf. I guess if I wanted to, they're all functional. If I have like a bunch of friends over and I needed like 6 more Joy-Cons, I have them. But yeah, so Nintendo essentially kickstarted this whole 5 years of journey on YouTube. And on top of that, I actually modded the Nintendo dock. I made it into like a portable dock. I guess it's not such a big issue now, but back then, bricking Nintendo Switches with the wrong dock was a very big problem. If you were to use like an unlicensed third-party dock, you run into the chance of bricking your Switch, which means you essentially lose your device forever. There's no recovering from that. So I got essentially I found a shell off of Taobao that lets me transplant the entire motherboard in the original dock into that shell. So all the hardware, like the important hardwares, are all the original stuff, and I'm just replacing the plastic casing on the outside, which doesn't do much. So that was what I did, and that's also one of my favorite projects that I've done. On top of that, all the projects I've done with PCs also has been a journey. It all started off from one keycap. I'm pretty sure I told this story in that video as well, but it started off with me and my colleague on a staycay during COVID. She introduced me like, hey, there's this company that's releasing a series of National Day themed keycaps, and asked if I would like to get one with her. Which I said yes. And then during this particular staycay, I went down the rabbit hole of discovering the world of keycaps and switches. That prompted me to do my own keyboard, which is still my favorite keyboard. The only thing I dislike about my keyboard is that it doesn't have the numpad, which I did not realize I was so used to, because I've always been using a full-size keyboard. I've never had a keyboard without a numpad. So that is still something that I wish I had gotten, but it's a very easily solvable problem. I can just buy a separate numpad by itself. Yeah, so still my favorite keyboard, best keyboard that I own, even compared to the wireless Logitech that I still have. It went from a keycaps to a keyboard and then a full computer. So I built my own PC. It was a splurge, also because I bought it in a period where GPU was twice its original price. It was so expensive. So instead of going for the latest GPU available at that point, which I believe was a 3080, I went for a 3070. So I kind of realized that the 60s and 70s are kind of like a group on their own, and the 80 and 90s are like the group on their own. And the 10, 20, 30, 40 number in front of them are like the series, the version numbers. So I went, instead of going for the 80 series, I went for a 70, I believe. Yes, I got a 3070. I had to go back to the video and check. But I also realized I did Invisalign throughout these 5 years. So my teeth looks very different from the start as compared to now. Yeah, that was something that I completely forgot about. Which also, if you had gone back to some of my videos, you can tell I speak weird. And just a side note on that, and given a choice to redo that segment of my life again, I would not have gone for Invisalign. It was so troublesome. I only have 2 hours without my Invisalign to eat or snack, and then when I have it on, I can't drink sweet drinks, I can't drink tea, coffee, basically just water. You can't chew. I mean, you can, but you risk breaking the Invisalign altogether. So given a chance, I would have just gone with like the standard metal braces. And it was during COVID, everybody's in mask. Like, I didn't know why I chose the expensive and the troublesome route. But anyway, essentially I fixed my teeth, I fixed my setup. There was a few changes. Like, I think I made 2 rounds of changes to my desk. If I don't count if I count the COVID one, there was in total 3 rounds of change. But essentially I started upgrading more and more things on my setup, that I started needing like just layout changes, right? So the first one actually was during COVID. I had to like make sure my old PC was working, that I could do calls at home and whatnot. And then after I decided I was going to build my first computer, I kind of had to change my entire layout so that everything would fit. And then after I built my own PC and kind of got the whole flow going, I realized that I actually needed more things. So I started adding more stuff and eventually found a desk that I really, really like from IKEA. And I got it. I think because the slight annoyance I've always had with my previous desk was that the monitor arm sticks out the back, so I can't flush it to the wall. But this particular desk allowed me to flush it back to the wall. The total desk space actually got reduced. Like, this desk is a lot shallower, but at the same time, I believe because I have a shelf behind my screens, there's only so much space I can push my screens back. If I didn't have them, I would have been able to like flush everything backwards a little bit more. So that would have given me more desk space. But yeah, that is for the next desk setup change. And I also realize now, looking at my videos, I tend to do my setup change like somewhere in the middle of the year. The first one was in June. If you don't talk about COVID for Singapore started, or rather, our quote unquote lockdown happened in April, and then so that was the very first change I made to my setup. And then afterwards, the following year, I changed my desk setup in June, and the year after that, 2022, surprisingly did not change my table at all. This year I did, 2023 I did. I changed my table, and then I think next year my stuff will change again for other reasons, which would appear in the following video. But yeah, so it's becoming almost a yearly tradition at this point. Hopefully no more after next year's change. And on the same line of like building my own computer, I built a Threadripper, which in all honesty was a really fun project that I probably would not have the chance to do if it wasn't for my workplace. I don't believe I will splurge that amount of money on a PC, especially since I don't do such heavy editing. Like I don't do graphic stuff. Like it's not much graphics, right? And even if I need to, my current PC is perfectly fine in handling that amount of like heavy graphics. But because of work and this whole like remote working arrangement that we've kind of evolved into because of the pandemic, there's a lot of like online purely virtual events that we have been doing. So I mentioned that capture card I have on my PC. Yeah, we decided to build a Threadripper because it's the only motherboard that could support multiple capture cards because of the PCIe slots that it has. Yeah, just a machine of pure computing power. Just $7,000 machine, and we got the lower end of the CPU chip. So if we had went for a higher end one, it's gonna. If we had gone for the top tier one, the chip itself would be $7,000. Yeah, so yeah, but we didn't need that. We just needed the extra PCIe slots, which is currently more than enough for us. It's a great editing PC. Whenever we have any kind of edit stuff to do, it's always done on the computer. It's so fast, it processes so well. It's such a good computer. Like it's worth that money, but I would not buy it for my personal use. Yeah, so that was a joy. That was a joy to build. Yeah, like if the Joy-Con, the Nintendo stuff, and the PC stuff are like kind of fits into the inner techie. I'm kind of quite a tech person. Like I built my own server and all, so those fits into my inner techie. And I dismantled my iPhone. I forgot about that. So I where's my iPhone? So I actually, it's still my iPhone 6s is still functional. So what I did was my iPhone. I've also just noticed that my battery is completely bloated now. Like it's bloated so bad it actually pushed my screen out. I have just noticed this. This particular iPhone 6s, I've been on it for really long. I think it's at least three years at least, because I didn't buy it when it first came out, so I got it like afterwards, and I stayed on it because I refused to move to a phone without a headphone jack. So I stayed on it for a long time until like it just really got really slow and I couldn't take it anymore. And the next phone I got was the XS. So so I used it for 3 years. There's like a 4-year gap in between these two models. So the mod I did to this phone, number one, is the casing. So it's just so funny looking at this like bloated screen. It's just so sad at the same time. So I changed the back to a matte black and gold trim, so the buttons are gold in color. And this Apple logo, as you can see, it lights up now. But the original case, the Apple logo that came with this case actually doesn't light up. It was a gold backing, but then I also found a LED Apple logo, which is what I ended up putting inside here. So this is touch responsive. I can double tap it to turn it on. So you can see now it's, that's not a very good way to show this. Now it's on, and if I were to double tap it again, it's off. Yeah, so this is touch responsive, and I need to open up my phone and release the battery. Let me just turn it off first. Yeah, so tech side, so I modded my iPhone 6s, and subsequently I opened up a few iPhones for display. So they were donated phones that came from my colleagues. Yeah, so that's the very tech side of me. The inner techie is happy with all those projects. Then there's also like the intellectual part, which I guess was only one video out of everything. Yeah, I guess it's just one, which is the Sudoku one. That was my first time trying a conditional Sudoku. It was a blank board with a bunch of rules that I have to follow to reach the full board, essentially to solve the board. That was so fun. I loved it so much. There's so much thinking. I kind of got me into a phase of Sudoku after a while. Like, I've been just on my phone playing Sudoku. But yeah, that was really, really fun. It was really tough though. My first time like solving a conditional Sudoku, that was really tough. Took me, I believe, like a whole like hour plus 2 hours. I think I left that video as long form. So yeah, that took me a really, really long time to finish. And then other than that is all the wood puzzles, the puzzles. So I actually had like a magic jigsaw puzzle video as well. That was a Kickstarter project. That was really nice. I still have it in its box. I tore out everything and just packed it back into his box. Still deciding if I want to like build it up again and then frame it, but I guess for a puzzle like that, it's better that you get to experience it again. And because it's not the standard jigsaw puzzles, kind of get to play again, you know, because some of the pieces are odd shaped, so that was quite fun. But I mean, the other projects I do, I can't exactly tear them apart and build them back again, because like the wood puzzles, they kind of just press together. The older ones didn't have like glues or whatever, they just held together by its own parts. And the later ones all required like glue in some form or another, like especially like the castle in the sky. Oh, and then there was the James Webb Space Telescope. That was very fun. That one required a soldering. That was something that I only did during the keyboard video. So that was really, really fun. I'm still very amazed at that model. I think the part that kind of fits, again, this is the techie side, like the solar panel, so the LEDs could light up. And yeah, that was really fun. And then the other major thing that I kind of did throughout this whole series was the 3D printed plug that I got for my table setup. So I have a PDU, power distribution unit, for my table. It's really, really overkill. Like, you don't require this kind of stuff for your house. It's just me. This is just me. So I have a PDU that controls my entire desk, except for my server router and my desk light. So these are stuff that I could turn on that sits outside of my PDU essentially, because I require this with or without my computer. So the PDU controls my PC, my screens, my sound system, and then a different button controls my old PC, which is the one I currently game on, my Switch. And then the other buttons will power other stuff in the future. So the problem I have with that is because in Singapore we use the G plug, the 3-pin UK plug. Those are quite big. Like US, China plug, the 2-pin ones are really skinny. Australia uses the slanted 2-pin ones, also really skinny. So you could fit it in a standard PDU, like side to side. You don't have a problem. And also, for the 2-pin plugs, the cable comes kind of straight out from the direction of the plug. Whereas for the G-type sockets, the wire comes out perpendicular to the pins, so which makes it very hard for my PDU because I have it in a 2-unit rack. This I don't have a space for the cable to go to because the other thing that's sitting inside the rack is my matrix switcher for my screens. Again, overkill. It's just me. Yeah, so I kind of devised my own solution to that. I got my dad to help me design a 3D plug. Sorry, I got my dad to help me design the 3-pin plug model that has the cable coming out straight from the back, and then essentially I sent it over to a 3D printing person and got it printed. I got it printed in resin because it's the most durable. Because the plastic kind of start chipping, especially after I tried to screw in the front and back covers together. So yeah, I got it printed in resin. It's very durable, heat resistant as well. So I'm not worried that it's not gonna run in the long term. Yeah, things I've learned throughout this whole 5 years is really fun. There was a lot of Lego projects I've done as well. Now that I look at my list of projects, there was a few Minecraft stuff. I think only 2. Yeah, there was 2 Minecraft update videos before like they released the major update, which I kind of stopped doing. The first one I actually did because it was during COVID, during the lockdown, and I was stuck at home. I couldn't do anything. There was another. Oh, the other odd one out was the Liho bubble tea kit. That one actually I was quite popular when I first posted that video because, again, it was during the quote unquote lockdown, and Liho is one of our local bubble tea brands. I believe they exist in other countries as well, but I'm not sure how popular they are. But it's one of our local bubble tea, one of the brands of bubble tea that we have in Singapore. And they released essentially a kit that you can make your own bubble tea at home. You can make, I think, 20 cups or so. So they gives you everything, the pearls, the creamer, the tea leaves, the sugar, the cups, and the straw. So you have everything to make your own bubble tea at home. The only problem was the direction that came with is like for making like 4 to 5 cups at one go, which my parents don't drink bubble tea. I'm the only person that drinks bubble tea at home, so I tried to size down everything to make like just 1 person serving, and I think I did quite a good job with it. And also for someone who doesn't really like sweet stuff, I can control my own level of sweetness for my bubble tea, so that was very nice. And then the next project that kind of stands out would be the cross stitch one. That one took me a long time, which I had because I had nothing else to do when I was at home. So I think it was like 90 hours. It took me 90 hours in total to finish that particular cross stitch. So the cross stitch was part 2 of 4, so it's seasonal 3. So I had finished spring a long time ago. This particular one I did was summer. There is still autumn and winter that I have not started. So I guess I might start doing that sometime soon, especially now that I've concluded this entire series. I probably have a bit more time on my hands. Yeah, so I might do autumn and winter soon. But yeah, that was a 90-hour cross stitch that I managed to complete all in the duration of a month, I believe. Yeah, that was quite fun actually. I do enjoy cross stitching. I came across it when I was young, when I was in the childcare, student care, not a childcare, student care. And during one of the holiday activities was when they taught us like line dancing, they taught us cross stitch, they taught us how to make like bracelets, like if I remember correctly. So I picked up cross stitch from there and I've not put down ever since. I've also started crocheting. So and I made a few coasters and I plan on making a top as well, but we'll see how that goes. And the next one, which is also I feel is my favorite project out of everything, is the Sure pouch that I've turned into a toothless plushie. I love this so much. I still have not put on the eyes. I haven't got haven't gotten around to like figuring out if my sewing machine could do embroidery, but I still have that yellow cloth that I could do the eyes on, and essentially this is how it's supposed to look. I do believe that they look quite similar. The only thing is the ears tend to bend forward because there is this like ridge on the pouch to keep its shape. But I guess that's okay. I mean, if I really wanted to, I could have like sewn it backwards a little bit, like sew it down onto the fabric so that it stays upright. But it doesn't matter much to me. So yeah. I guess this is my favorite project, I believe, out of the whole. I can't say it's my favorite, but it's definitely one of my favorite. Like the ones on the list are this, my PC, the very first Joy-Con, the transparent shell, and I guess the Threadripper. Oh, my keyboard. Yeah, so it's been 5 years of really good memories. I think I've learned a lot. Like looking at my edit now and how my videos were 5 years ago, there's so much has changed. So yeah, if you have been here from the start, thank you so much for following me along on the journey. It's a little bit all over the place. I do have to say there's like Legos, there's wood puzzles, there's tech modding stuff, there's Sudoku, there's sewing projects, there's so many different things. But all in all, it was a project that I started because I wanted to learn something out of it. I wanted to force myself. Essentially, I just wanted to force myself to create. And when I guess when you're trying to learn something and you force yourself to constantly do it, you eventually will start learning no matter what. So yeah, at this point, I don't see a lot more of what I can do to my videos because I don't want to make too much changes to its format. Like it's always been a top-down camera and a frontal camera, so a talking head and a top-down of what I'm doing, and I didn't want to deviate too much from that. So with that format in place, there's not much I can do in terms of changes to the way I film and edit, in a sense. So yeah, so I decided to call it an end after 5 years, after this year actually. So I decided to call it an end after this year. I decided somewhere in the middle of the year, I believe, or I think it was, yeah, somewhere in the middle of the year, that I realized that I'm kind of stuck. Like editing videos just takes me like half an hour nowadays because it's so routine at this point. Yeah, so I realized that, I'm kind of hitting a plateau of what I could learn out of this format of video vlogging. So yeah, I actually wanted to make one final video before ending with this video. So if you see on the playlist, like all of my natural habitat series are in a playlist. This is video number 49. I actually wanted to create another one so that this video will become video number 50, which would make it a perfect close. But I guess I did start on that project, but I soon realized that it was a very, very big project. Like the kit seemed easy, but looking at the parts that I had to create a tree out of paper leaves, it's it's a lot of handicrafts in that particular project, and in my life right now I just don't have the time to finish it in a month or even 2 actually. So I decided, you know what, let's just put that aside. I will do it as and when I can, and I'll just finish it somewhere down in the future. But I will still post this video as, I guess, imperfect close to an imperfect series. And throughout these 5 years, I actually created new logo animations as well. I just remembered. I created new transitions, so like animate in, animate out, things that I kind of improved along the way. Back then, I didn't know. I mean, I studied VFX, but motion graphics has always been a weak point. Like I cannot understand the software. I used to sleep in every single one of my motion graphics class. I'm so sorry, lecturer. I know there was a few times he even tried to wake me up, but yeah, I just can't. But I kind of figured it out along the way. Got myself the current animations that I actually really like. It's simple, plain, that has my branding. Yeah, it's been a journey the past 5 years, and there are a lot more content that I have in mind at this point. One of them being my gaming stuff. So, I've mentioned earlier that I've been streaming. The game that I'm currently on is Stardew Valley. So, I plan to continue that. I just finished the first year and I just like put it aside because I've been so busy. I do want to complete that. The aim for any one of you who knows Stardew Valley, the aim is for perfection for that particular file that I have. So yeah, I'm gonna continue live streaming that, and I do have plans to cut out the highlights of each stream and post them here, or maybe just post the uncut stream. Still deciding on that. Or doing both and have the uncut on a separate channel. But yeah, just thoughts for another day. And I also have stuff going on in real life that I can't wait to share. Those will come out progressively as and when things are complete. The reason that I've been so busy the past few months and probably the next few months as well. Yeah, this 5 years has really been the end of an era. So much things happened, and it's fond memories that I look back on now. Yeah, so thank you so much for following along on this journey. I hope you enjoy the kind of content that I put out and will be putting out. Even if you have me on as background videos, because I do that to some of the content creators that I follow. I just have them on in the background. So I think that also influenced in me in how I treat this whole series. Like I try to keep videos past a certain length so that if people do have me on the background, they don't have to keep coming back to change the video. Yeah, so thank you so much for being here. And I'll see you in the next one.